Hello everyone and welcome to NT320 Wireless Networking Fundamentals. This is week 7 presentation, Ethernet Basics. So, what is Ethernet? Ethernet is a widely successful topology. It has been around for a very long period of time. There are many different standards associated with it. We see it everywhere. It is now the common universal standard for networking. But sometimes each Ethernet configuration might be a little bit different. Some might use fiber, others might use copper, or different speeds in each one of those types of scenarios may use a different Ethernet standard. Whenever you are looking at the standards themselves, you will notice that a lot of the modern standards use copper and they use fiber, but in the older standards, we also had coax type of connections as well. One of the earliest twisted pair standards of Ethernet was 10 base T. The 10 represents the speed in megabits per second that you could send through the Ethernet connection. The B stands for baseband, and that means that there is a single frequency that is being used over the cables so that data can be sent from one side to the other side. Now, you might have heard about broadband. We see this a lot with cable modems and cable television technology. Broadband means there are many frequencies that are being used across that single connection. And whenever we talk about broadband communication, we are generally talking about the speed. We are really talking about how many different frequencies that we are using inside of that cable. Generally, when we look at these standards, if we see the letter T, it really stands for twisted pair. If we see a letter C, it means coax. If there is fiber inside of that standard, then it will have an F designation in the standard name. Now, when 10 base T was initially introduced, the standard cable that one will use in a category 3 was that. So category 1, which was typically used for voice, was not what we will use for Ethernet. We needed a better cable for Ethernet. To run 10 base T, we needed that Cat 3, and that gave us 100 meters distance that we can hang out from one side to the other and expect this 10 base T connection to operate properly. Although we were introduced to 10 megabits, it was not enough. We needed more, and so we moved up to 100 megabits Ethernet. One of the most popular standards was 100 base TX. We also call that fast Ethernet. Nowadays, a 100 megabit is not the fastest that you will get, but at the time, that was 10 times increase in speed. We went from 10 megabits to 100 megabits in order to do that. Because the speeds were higher, there were also higher requirements for the cabling, and this is where category 5 comes into play. Cat 5 had better twist and better copper than we were using inside of those connections, so that we could still maintain 100 meters all the way across. Well, if we wanted to run 100 megabits over fiber, we could do that as well. The standard for that was 100 base FX. So we're talking about using pair of optical fibers. One of those fibers will be for transmitting and one of those fibers will be for receiving. The multimode fiber links for 100 FX were 400 meters over half duplex connection and 2 kilometers. If we were going over a full duplex connection, that would be about approximately 2 kilometers. So we could really extend this out over very large geographical distances. If you use single mode fiber to be able to communicate using the 100 FX standard, you will go over 2 kilometers. And if we are trying to send data across the city, that will be a very standard way to have that happen. As time moved on, we increased from 100 megabits per second to 1000 megabits per second, or 1 gigabit, and that's 1000 base T. And there is 1000 in our baseband as well, and the T, which means it is gigabyte Ethernet over category 5 per cable. There is also a Cat5e, which is enhanced, and also a Cat6, which is used as a standard for 1000 base T. It is just a little bit of a better cable. One interesting thing about 1000 base T and the standard is that it uses all 4 pair that are inside of the Ethernet cable. If you are doing 10 base T or 100 base T, we were really only using 2 of those pair. So this is using all 4 of those inside their connection. Otherwise, it looks and feels exactly like 10 base T and looks and feels exactly like 100 base T X, except now we are going at gigabit speeds. There is also a standard for gigabit communication over fiber connections. The 1000 base X standard is gigabit Ethernet over fiber. There are several different standards associated with that. 2 of the most common are 1000 base LX, which is a long wavelength fiber for long distances. And for the standard, we could go over 5 kilometers in distance. There is also a 1000 base SX, which is a short wavelength laser. We usually call that the short distance gigabit Ethernet on a fiber, and that goes a maximum of about 550 meters. There are 3 different standards that we generally see with 10 gigabit Ethernet over fiber. We will first look at the 10G base SR. This is 10 gig baseband using short range communication. If you have older fiber, then that goes about 80 meters, but with the right kind of fiber, we can extend this out to be 300 meters. That is generally what we will be used inside a single room or inside a single data center. We also have a standard for longer ranges, and that is 10 base LR, which is long range and using a single mode fiber. We can extend this out anywhere to almost 25 kilometers. We can really go quite a long distance with that long range communication, and it uses lasers to accomplish that, so that we can get a high powered light and signal through that connection. Another one is an extended range 10G base ER. It is one that can really extend the link out to 40 kilometers by using single mode fiber to be able to communicate over those distances. If you are a service provider, You may be providing 10 gig Ethernet over a wide area network communication. There are three types. We have the 10G base SR, 10G base LW, and 10G base EW. But there is a short in and extended version over the WAN, and this integrates a 10 gig Ethernet with a SONET or SDH link. Now, SONET meaning synchronous optical networking, and SDH meaning synchronous digital hierarchy. These are the same type of fibers connectors and the same type of distances as we have for the 10G base SR, 10G base LR, and 10G base ER. If we are not using fiber to send 10 gig connections, there is a standard for 10 gigabit Ethernet over copper connections. This uses twisted pair cables. If we have a Cat6 cable, we can go as far as 55 meters. And if you have Cat6A, then we can go as far as 100 meters with our 10G base T. So, that's a quick overview of Ethernet basics and the pieces and components associated with it. We have reached the end of this presentation, and I thank you for watching and listening.